Hi everyone, it's time for the exciting conclusion to monopolistic competition. So we'd gone through the introduction, we'd set it up, we talked about what happens when there are economic profits and how that invites entry because of the low barriers to entry, and how competing firms cause the demand curves for the existing firms to shift to the left. So now we want to look at the other situation. What if there are losses? And so we'll talk about that in the long run and in the short run, just like we did with perfect competition. So in the long run, when there are losses, so let's get our setup here. So it's monopolistic competition or differentiated competition. So you have a downward sloping demand curve. That means your marginal revenue curve is underneath it and falls faster. Now, first you need to find Q star, the profit maximizing output level for the firm. To do that, you need marginal revenue and marginal cost. Remember the profit maximizing rule? You produce as long as marginal revenue is greater than or equal to marginal cost. So let's add in a marginal cost curve. There we go. Let me see if I can write it a little neater. That's it. Now you're going to find Q star where marginal revenue and marginal cost intersect, right? So there's the optimal output level for the firm. Now, what are they going to sell for? Well, if Q star is the optimal output level, then you have to look at the demand curve so that you choose the optimal price. And there's their optimal price. So the firm in monopolistic competition is a price searcher. They choose the optimal output level, that's Q star, and the optimal price, but they're connected by the demand curve, right? So once you find Q star, you go up to the demand curve, you find P star. So now we ask the next question, is this firm earning a profit? Well, if you said, I don't know, that's the correct answer, right? We don't have enough information yet. Now, because we're talking about losses, I'm going to try to draw the average total cost curve in such a way that this firm is not earning a profit. So here's an average total cost curve. It hits its minimum where marginal cost goes through it, right? Because marginal always drags the average along. And now we have the information to see that at Q star, if this is P star, if this is the price I sell it for, but on average each unit costs me that much, then I'm losing this much money. That's the red vertical bar there on each of the Q star units. So that means my economic loss is this area right here. So is this firm losing money? Yes, they are suffering an economic loss. So now what? Well, this is a long run question, right? So in the long run, by definition, all inputs are variable. If all inputs are variable, they can dial all of their inputs back to 0. So they can dial them all back to 0. Some firms will exit the industry. So if you think back to the map, like last time in the first section, I had drawn a map of a city, and there were various streets, and we had different coffee shops on here. In the long run, some of those coffee shops will close, right? So something will go away. And so for the remaining shops, the question is then what happens to the remaining coffee shops? Well, presumably their demand will increase because as some shops close, so if Dunkin' Donuts closes, then Starbucks and Tim Hortons may each pick up a few more customers, right? So you'd expect to see the demand curve shift to the right for the remaining firms. The demand shifts to the right, then there's going to be a new marginal revenue curve, marginal revenue 2, and then you're going to have a new Q star. So this is Q star 2. Right? Each remaining firm will produce a little bit more than they were before. Come up to I'm going to draw a big dot here. We'll sort of lump it together. Come up to the demand curve, and looks like they're going to sell at a little less than they would have before. So here's P star 2. And it's pretty close to the average total cost. I didn't quite hit it there, but if I make my dot big enough, we're going to say that P star, the price they sell it for, is about equal to the average total cost. So in this case, they're at a point of economic break-even. Should we try to spell it right? There we go. How's that? They're at a point of economic break even because the price is equal to the average total cost. That's what I'm trying to show there. Now, in your graph, you might not have immediately gotten there. I had to fudge it with a big dot to get there as well. So if you show up with a economic loss but just smaller than before, that's okay. That just means that the economic loss has gotten smaller, and over time another shop may close, and the demand curve may shift out a little bit. If you shifted your demand curve out enough, maybe you showed an economic profit. An economic profit then and eventually might invite more entry, either through a new firm or through an existing firm that expands their product line in a way to compete. So there you go. That's in the long run. Yeah, and let's write this up here in the corner. But this, even though the graph looks different, right, the logic is the same as it was in perfect competition. So in the long run, economic loss causes exit. So exit is what we call it when firms leave the industry altogether. They have no fixed inputs and no fixed costs. They completely liquidate and get out of the industry. That's what we call exit. So in the long run, it's a question of exit. So if we go back up to our graph here, right, in the long run, the question is one of exit. That leaves us, though, with the short run scenario, right? The short run is the period of time when there is at least one fixed input. So that means that you have fixed costs. And if you have fixed costs and you're losing money, then the question is, should you just shut down, lay everyone off, turn the thermostat back and just pay your fixed costs? Or should you operate at a loss, right, and suffer the operating loss? And of course the question is, well, which one is smaller? I'd rather not lose money, and if I have to, I want to lose as little as possible. So which is smaller, my operating loss or my fixed costs? And just like with perfect competition, it comes down to a question of, can you at least cover the variable costs by operating? So that's the question that we have to address. So losses in the short run. Let's draw another setup here. Here's a downward sloping demand curve. Marginal revenue curve is underneath it and falls faster. Here's your marginal cost curve. So first, this firm needs to figure out what's the profit maximizing output level. Well, that's right. The profit maximizing rule is the same. You produce as long as marginal revenue is greater than or equal to marginal cost. Stop there. That's Q star. All right, how much can I sell it for? Well, if I want to sell Q star units, I can look to the demand curve and say, all right, there's P star. That's the price that I can charge. Now, is this firm earning a profit? Well, I don't know. I need more information. In this case, let's draw the average total cost curve in here. Right, and I drew it in with its minimum where the marginal cost goes through. That's quite an aggressive loss there, the way I drew it. But at Q star, they sell every unit for this amount, and every unit costs them on average that amount, so they're losing that much money on all of these units, right? So that represents their economic loss, right? That red box there. So in the short run, what do? Right, well, you remember their options are either to shut down, right, and that's then pay fixed cost, or operate at a loss, right, and suffer your operating loss. And so the question really becomes, can you cover your variable costs of production? So let's get a new color here. Use pink. And let's look at your average variable cost curve. So if your average variable cost curve looks like this, it's an average measure, so the marginal is still going to drag it along. So if this is your average variable cost, notice it as you move to the right, as Q increases, right, they get closer and closer together because your average fixed costs are getting smaller and smaller. So in this case, with this average variable cost curve, here's your average variable cost, and then the price that you sell it for is up here. So in this case, price is greater than average variable costs. So what should you do? Should you shut down and pay your fixed costs, or should you operate at a loss? All right, this is a video, so I can't hear what you're saying. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that you said, hey, we might as well operate at a loss because we can cover our average variable costs. That means we can cover the labor and the raw materials and the utilities that are used in manufacturing or producing the service, whatever it is. And if we can more than cover our variable costs, that means we're offsetting some of our fixed costs. Remember, your fixed costs, right? If average total cost is made up of average variable costs and average fixed costs, then your average fixed cost is this whole distance here. And so your operating loss per unit is smaller than your fixed cost per unit. So you are better off when price is greater than average variable costs, you want to keep operating, right? Operate at a loss. You're still going to lose money, and that stinks, but you're going to lose less than if you just shut down and pay your fixed costs. Now, this is not sustainable forever, right? This is either until enough other firms leave that you can break even. Again, enough other firms leave, the demand for your firm shifts to the right to the point where you're breaking even, or until you get the opportunity to divest yourself of everything and exit. So there is the short run scenario where you choose to operate at a loss. Let me quickly draw one more where the optimal solution would be to shut down. So I'll go quickly. You can always pause this and slow it down if you need to. There's your marginal revenue curve. You need your marginal cost curve, right? That gives you Q star for the firm. Say, all right, at Q star, what price can I charge? Well, there's P star. Is this firm earning an economic profit? Well, no, right? It's going to have to lose money because that's the section we're talking about. So there's your average total cost curve. So now you can see at Q star, if they sell it here, but it costs them on average here, then they're losing this whole area in loss, right? Economic loss. And now, what color did I use for the pink, wasn't it? For the average variable cost curve, yeah. What if I can't cover my average variable costs? Right? What if my average variable costs look like this? It still hits its minimum where marginal goes through. But what if at Q star, the price I can sell it for here, and my average variable cost is up here, which means that price is less than average variable cost. That means that if I stay open and produce, the price I sell it for does not even cover the labor and the raw materials and the other variable costs of production. So if that's the case, if I stay open and operate, I lose even more money, right? That red box with the stripes, that is my operating loss. Remember that my fixed costs would only be this big, right, per unit. And so if I thought about times Q star units, I'd get a box that's smaller than my red box with the stripes. So this is a scenario where I want to shut down and pay fixed costs. It's a scenario where I'd be better off just shutting down and paying the fixed costs. So go back and look at this graph, compare it to the one we did before, and make sure that you understand and can see the difference. So, what is the long run scenario? In differentiated or monopolistic competition, what does the long run picture look like? Well, I'm just going to skip ahead here quickly. There's your profit maximizing output level. There is P star, your profit maximizing price. We know that in the long run, economic profits invite entry and economic losses lead to exit. So the long run scenario, not surprisingly, is one of economic break even, which we usually show as the average total cost curve, just hitting the demand curve right there. So the long run scenario is one of break even. Now, I think I mentioned last time that there are scenarios where a firm continues to innovate and always stays ahead of its competitors, and so it might earn short run profits over time might run, earn short run profits quarter after quarter and even year after year for a while. But as soon as they sit still and just wait, other firms will imitate them and catch up, and those profits will get competed away. Why? Because there are low barriers to entry. And then what about efficiency? Both allocative and productive, right? So produce at minimum of average total cost, right? That's productive efficiency. Do we do that? Well, no, right? Because let's use a different color. We use the blue here. Here's the minimum of average total cost, right? This would be the Q star that minimizes your cost per unit of production. So nope, there's no productive efficiency. And then what about allocative efficiency? Right? Allocative efficiency is producing where the marginal benefit is just equal to the marginal cost, right? For the last unit produced, the benefit to the consumer is just equal to the cost of producing. Well, that happens here, right? Let's change colors here. Right here is the point where the marginal benefit to the consumer, which we could read off the demand curve, and the marginal cost to the producer, which is obviously the marginal cost curve. This is the Q star that would give you allocative efficiency. And since we're producing over here, the firm chooses to produce here, they don't get that either. So no, you do not achieve allocative efficiency. You do not achieve productive efficiency. In fact, we're going to find that no market structure gives you those, except perfect competition. Right? No other market structure will give you those two kinds of efficiency. But you do get something in exchange. You get variety. You get differentiation. So even though I sometimes complain about the different kinds of toothpaste, the varieties of toothpaste in the toothpaste aisle, I may, complain when I can't figure it out. I just want toothpaste. However, I do appreciate living in a world with variety where, you can wear sweatshirts and hoodies by one company and some of us will wear ones by others. And we have options in terms of shoes and cars and cupboards and so many different things, pencils, rather than just having some generic gray box that says toothpaste because every company makes it exactly the same. So what do you get for this increase in costs, right? The fact that that you're not at the minimum of the average total cost curve. Well, in exchange, those higher costs are due to some other things like differentiation. And so even though it does raise costs, I think that it has benefits as well, right? We live in a world with variety where you can choose clothes and shoes and the things that fit you and are not necessarily uniform across everyone. We have variety in so many things. And then, because companies want to explain about their variety and why theirs is better and build, interest in their particular brand, you have advertising, right? Without differentiation, without variety, we wouldn't really have a reason to advertise, and we'd have to watch the whole Super Bowl without the Super Bowl commercials. So I think there are lots of benefits to differentiation as well, but it comes at a cost, and that is it's a little less efficient. So there you go. That wraps up monopolistic competition. If you have questions, make sure you check in. Otherwise, next time we get together, we will be talking about oligopoly. So see you then.